Live. Hey everybody, my name is Leslie Roy, and I'm joined today by the other brains of the Braintrust. That's Dan Thies, my co-founder, and Corey Burke, who's our Director of Client Services, and Michelle Sang-Thong, who's on staff just because it tricks me up to have to try to say her name. So, actually that's not true. She's like small business consultant or something like that. We're very, very careful about titles here. So let's see, why don't we have actually a prepared presentation today for this particular hangout, but before we get into that, why don't we go around the room? Is there anything like breaking news, Dan, that everybody should know about in the world of search and search marketing and stuff like that?
How many days till Thanksgiving?
Not many.
Not very many. So if you're planning on firing up a Google Shopping campaign, formerly known as product listing ads, now would be a good time to get that process in motion, because Thanksgiving might very well be the biggest cyber shopping day of the year.
Yeah, so I mean it's a war between the Thursday, Friday, and Monday, right? Those are the 3 days that are always vying for biggest focus for retailers to have a big Q4.
Yeah. Yeah.
So now, did you actually? I mean, I know that we had sent a message to all of our followers about that. I mean, can you say something about that? Do we have a short code we can put in the chat box about that?
Well, the best thing for anybody to do if they want to talk about AdWords at this point and figure out what we can do for you with whether holidays matter or not, what can we do for you? Just email me, Dan@marketersbraintrust.com, and let's have a conversation about it. So just let me know what site we're working on, and if you've been running ads before, let me know a little bit about how that's gone, and we'll take the conversation from there.
So I just put that in Skype chat, so you'll be getting dozens of phone calls while you're on Hangout, which will be awesome, of course. So at least I guess it went in there. I can't see the Skype chat, so why do I not see the results of the chat?
Maybe I'm talking to the phone to someone on the phone right now, and you don't even know it.
Yeah, that's never
Flowquist.
It's kind of strange that I'm not seeing the content of the chat. That's going to be very difficult if people are asking questions, right? So yet another oddity of Hangouts and jamming. And you guys can't see the jam control panel at all, is that right? Corey? Michelle?
That's correct.
Ugh, okay, I'm not liking that at all, but okay, well, gosh, let me see here. Maybe someone can tell me. We've got lots and lots of people on the Hangout. Maybe Janet can. I wonder if Janet can actually see the box. One of y'all, while I bring up the presentation, one of y'all figure out if Janet can actually see the Hangout, the jam control panel or something.
Okay.
It would be kind of useful if we could actually see the questions. I don't know.
This is the best show ever so far.
Yeah, so far. Yeah, I don't know what happened with the links this time. Okay, so why don't we go ahead and get started? So today we're actually going to talk about one of my favorite topics, and I know Dan finds it humorous. It is one of my favorite topics, and that is the world of spam. And so let me get the presentation here where I can actually use it, because this is the place where this really goes off the rails. It's sharing screen.
Janet said she can enter. She's able to enter a question.
She was or was not?
She is.
Yeah, I can't see it though. That's what's weird.
Oh, comments are set to off.
Huh?
Comments are set as off.
Oh, that's weird. Hang on a second. Why is that? Enable chat. Oh, for God's sake! I turned it off. That's why. Wow. Yes.
That's what you call pilot error right there.
The joy of working with engineers.
I don't understand why this thing is working exactly like it's supposed to.
It's a mystery to me. Yeah. So.
That's one of the best.
Leslie voice, and it's not very good.
No, it's all right. It'll do for the moment.
It will not hire me to play you in the Leslie movie.
I can now see the question, and okay, great. All right, that's fantastic.
And so can Janet.
And so now I'm going to share a screen, and then we're going to get into the formal, that's in quotes, presentation for today. I know, I love that effect. Isn't that awesome? And so now let's see if this actually works too. So play from start. And I forgot to sharing your screen. Google Plus names is sharing your screen with post below. That makes sense. Okay, and it should be in full screen mode. So does that look like a title slide to you guys?
It does.
Anyone?
Braintrust.
Hot dog. Wow.
18th.
It might actually be working. Who knows? We'll see. All right, so this is November 18th.
It says Braintrust. Hang on.
Yeah, it says that. So what we're going to talk about today is spam versus SEO and how you can do both. And so the big promise for this talk is I'll tell you how search actually works, and it's not as complicated as you might think. How to spam, if you'd actually like to do that, go forth and spamify. And actually how to rank if you don't want to spam. There's actually a way that you can rank without spamming, by the way. I know it's a little known truth. And then the real differences between spamming and non-spamming. It may actually surprise you how little they are different. So along the way, I'll tell you the three kinds of different kinds of spam. What part of SEO has actually changed in the last 3 or 4 years, and then as a little aside, because it's a really cool story, the call I got from Google back in 2002, directly from the spam team. That's kind of a cool story. So let's get started. First of all, if you go look at the Webmaster guidelines, and I encourage you to do that occasionally, once every 2, 3, 4, 5 years, you'll find that there are two phrases repeated over and over. One is that anything you do to deceive humans is considered spam. Anything you do to manipulate ranking is considered spam. And these are, let's be clear, are very different ideas. If you deceive humans, that's a crime. That'd be like fraudulent links where you say, hey, click here to see Beethoven, and you actually see porn. That's a deception. And it's actually commission of fraud. What species of fraud, I couldn't say. I only played a lawyer on TV. But manipulating ranking, well, hang on, let's think about that. Manipulate means to control, generally in a skillful manner, if you go look that up in the dictionary. Well, as an SEO, isn't our job to improve rankings? And how is improve upward not just another way of saying manipulate? So it's really, an open question here is, what SEO is not spam? See, manipulate implies skill, and skill breeds an intent to actually use that. So if you rank without skill, it's certainly not spam, that's just lucky. But if you're skilled at SEO, that means you're actually intentionally and effectively improving ranking, aka manipulating it. So maybe I'm playing with the words a little bit, but I think you know what I mean, right? The fact is that spamming in SEO is not a bright line. So skill and intent, though, cannot be computed or detected, and that's the problem that Google has in figuring out what is spam and what is just good marketing that's informed by how search actually works. So let's talk about how search works. There are only 3 cornerstones. These have been the same cornerstones. They haven't changed since the Google boys, first entered grad school. And they are relevance, authority, and quality. The idea is we want to return, a search engine wants to return a relevant result. Well, that makes sense. If you search for something, you try to get something back that's about that, for God's sake. They also want to return the best, or their highest authority result. And that's why you find things like Wikipedia show up so often, by the way, because it makes sense that it's an authority result. And then finally, there's a notion of quality, because something could be very relevant and very high authority and also be complete crap. I won't go into the ones that come to mind, but anyway. Now,
Hey, Leslie?
Yes, ma'am.
Can I interrupt real quick? You may want to set it to your slides, because apparently any little noise any of us makes pops it away from your slides.
Oh, crap. That's because I forgot to set that in before going share screen.
Computers are hard.
I know, they really are. Good thing
They got computering classes at the community college if you want to go.
I think I have a little violin. I can help.
Computering classes is an interesting present to everyone. There. Wow, isn't that a great effect? That's the coolest thing ever.
Great for a migraine.
The whole switching into it's kind of a beating. And so from current slide. Okay, so now I should be keeping all your coughs and noises and all that you're making in the background from changing the display. This comes back up.
Yep, it's working.
Yeah, right. Okay. Oh, good. Yeah, thanks for that test there, Dan. Appreciate that. So let's talk about the old days of pre-Google, back when there were these things like, what was that called? Inktomy? That was a bizarre name, right? Anyway, So relevance was done with keyword placement and density. So we talked about, putting the keywords at the title of the page, and in H1s, and in bold text, and there was all sorts of ridiculous hooey about that. And keyword density, how many times was this keyword repeated on the page? It's 2% or 2.8%, the right, target density. Authority was done purely with the number of links pointing at the page. It was called link popularity back in the day, pre-2000s. And again, that was a very, very coarse idea of authority, but it's what they had with the simple algorithms. In quality, as far as I can tell, there was really no measurement of quality back in those days. They were just trying to build as big an index as possible. If you remember back then, it's like, Google and Yahoo were in this race to see who had the biggest number on the homepage, about how many pages indexed, whatever. Stopped doing it because they realized it didn't matter. But that was.
So you mean quality wasn't based on the number of edu links and delicious bookmarks your site had? Because I read that somewhere.
Yeah, I'm sure, right? Yeah. Oh, wow. And so then post-Google, relevance was taken over by a thing that I named in 2002 as link reputation. Actually, I think the name was come up with by Michael Campbell. I can't remember which one of us actually came up with the name, but that was the notion of keywords in the link text. And you'd think now, it's like, okay, well, everybody knows that. Well, nobody knew it almost no one knew it in 2001, and they were keeping their mouths shut. It wasn't until somebody like me in May of 2012 told everybody that link text was the single biggest effect in ranking. And that was the way Google was determining relevance. The text on the page was almost not a factor. In fact, for a while that was ranked for really decently competitive terms because of just text in the links, the anchor text itself. Authority was that other piece of secret sauce that Google used, and that's this algorithm named PageRank. And both of these things were disclosed in the original paper by Page and Brin, The Anatomy of a Large-Scale Search Engine. Quality, though, they really hadn't done anything new and different about quality. They were still equivalent to Inktomi in the way they quality. That was their review. And initially, they didn't even have that. There was one particular conference, I can't remember the Googler that said it, from stages that we can't spam us. Well, that's changed. So even back in the day, in the 2000s, early 2000s, they really didn't have a quality process in any of their algorithms they were doing with humans. Obviously not scalable. Now, post-Panda, go ahead.
Quality leads to lots of good links with good link reputation, right, Leslie? And no one would ever spam that.
Well, actually, back in those days, in the original paper, that gets into a long discussion. I know Dan once had me do, but we don't have time for. But it's about the whole concept of a natural link, and we've talked about this before in our launches of link liberation in particular. But Google said that what should happen is that quality content should just be linked to naturally. And the problem with that story back in 1990s and early 2000s was the only way that links could be created was by geeks like me, hosting websites with CGI and Perl and all that crap. And so calling that a natural link, I think, was a little bit of a twist of the definition. Now that's completely changed. We'll talk about that here in just a few minutes about what's really changed there. But yes, good quality of content was supposed to get natural links. It's just that the web at the time, when Google first wrote those papers and built that engine, frankly, natural links were theoretically impossible. You couldn't really have a quote-unquote real human. All you could have was another webmaster, and so that's what bred various exchanges and purchases, and you pat my back, I'll scratch yours. Post-Panda is very different. But not only did Google finally decide to actually have a real quality algorithm or a set of quality algorithms, but the web itself has changed, and now real human beings can create real honest-to-God links, those are the natural links that Google has said that they always wanted. Setting that aside for a moment, we have essentially the same engine. We have link reputation as primarily the measure of relevance. PageRank is still absolutely the only measure of authority, but all of that is hidden inside a walled garden protected by black and white animals. And so if you can just get past Panda and Penguin and the unnamed others, you basically rank exactly the same way you did in 2001. The challenge is that that's the easy part of the problem. Getting linked text that matters, but not too much, because that's part of the quality score now, is not that difficult. And now you can do it with natural links, and that's where the whole notion of quality content getting natural links coming in. We'll talk about that in a bit. But just realize that the actual ranking algorithm per se has remained essentially unchanged. The numbers have been dialed a bit so that in fact PageRank is even more important than it was, which makes people think it's about brands, and it's not, it's about big websites. And link text has been adjusted so that in fact Google is now so sensitive to link text that you better whisper rather than shout when you tell them what your page is about. It used to be that you could have 100% of your backlinking profile could be anchor text and you'd be doing fine, and that was true up until about 2006 or 7. Now, that's definitely not the case. Starting in 2011, you would better be very careful about the amount of anchor text that has your keywords in it, because it is very definitely not natural, and it's going to be filtered out by the algorithms. If you weren't filtered out by the algorithms, hey, the original algorithm inside that walled garden would still rank you at the top of results. The challenge is the filters will not allow you to get there. Okay, so let's look at how SEO has changed because of those changes in the algorithms, right? Pre-Google was very simple technology. Stuff keywords into a page. It was the simplest thing in the world. And there were lots of keyword counters and density counters and stuff like that. And even I was building one in late 2001. It was very unstable, though, because it didn't work very well. And so the people who ran search engines kept changing and tweaking the numbers. Figuring out, well, is bold better than italic? And how do we treat the difference between keywords in the title versus keywords in the headline or the body? It was also extraordinarily bad for humans. I mean, the crap that we call content in 1996, oh my God, right? And it was because it had to be simultaneously visible to humans and to search engines. It was the one page, and it was generally horrible. It was also, now post-Google, it was no longer simple. People actually had to understand something. They had to know what a link was. And literally, when I released OptiLink in 2002, one person who bought it said, "Well, I don't quite understand. What do you mean by link text?" I said, "Oh, okay, well, let me go ahead and process it."
We used to get those support questions up until about 2011, Leslie. So.
Okay, well, that's good. Newbies are found. And so, but so it's a little bit harder to understand once Google comes out. And now, PageRank in particular. I mean, I wrote about that in a book named Dynamic Linking, and then subsequently in a video course named Mastering PageRank. And the people who got it really got it. The people who didn't really just completely glazed over. It was never a very effective product because of that, by the way, because it's just too difficult for most people to really figure out what to do with PageRank. It was much better. It was a much better service as a consultant than it was as a product. However, the rules were extraordinarily stable because Google had figured out rules that made sense. Instead of keyword density and whether the keywords are bold or italic or underlined, they had come up with something in the form of link text pointing to the page and the total authority created by PageRank. That made sense. The other thing was almost invisible to humans. You could actually build a really nice web page. It should whatever you want. In fact, like I said, I got blank pages to rank, so that says that the page is not important. So you could build that perfect piece of content for humans and then just bomb the hell out of it with links and build lots and lots of page rank around it, and it would rank. It would rank for no reason, right? I mean, no discernible reason looking at the page. One of the classic examples I used to teach this back in the day is still true now, and that is what ranks for the phrase, click here, the Adobe download page. It doesn't actually have the words click here anywhere on the page. It has a lot of links that say, to get Adobe Reader, click here. And that's the magic link text. And so really, I consider that period of time between really the advent of Google and the advent of Panda rather, I consider that the golden age of SEO. Now, man, the money was easy. Now, post-Panda, not so much. First of all, the other thing that happened was a big shift in the balance of power between search engines, Google in particular, and webmasters. Used to be that Google had a voracious appetite for anything you put on the web, they wanted indexed. Now, they don't really give a shit. I mean, the fact is they have more content on any particular topic than they really know it needed to have. And so your little new website, we'll get around to it. Not so much important anymore. So that symbiotic relationship between webmasters and search engines shifted tremendously over the last several years. The other thing is that the pandas and the penguins and the you name it have made search so much harder, so much more complex. There's so many other things that you need to know about to really be doing intelligent, safe and effective SEO. And that's, is it 20 times harder? I don't know, pick a number. The old methods still do work, but they're very short term, measured in weeks typically. And so I consider 2011 the great cleansing. Suddenly, the people who are using old practices are all dying away. So what does that leave? You know, what could you do today to get away with murder like we used to do back in the old days? God, those are good days, too. Well, first, you can still use link networks, but they don't last very long. I mean, they last literally weeks. Now, if you're careful, you can make them last longer, but what you're giving up is, on the one hand, safety versus effectivity. In order to make it really effective, it becomes unsafe and goes away rapidly. In order to make it highly effective, the opposite is true. And so that's not a very good plan. You can do duplicate content, that still absolutely works, and you can spin content to your blue in the face. Those also still work, but again, they only work for some period of time. After Google gets done updating some signals, folds it back in the algorithm, poof, you're penguined or whatever, right? And so I liken this to digging a hole in water. If you dig fast enough, you can actually form a depression in water. God help you if you form a very big depression and stop digging. That's called drowning. So we really need to consider the most important thing to consider in the modern age of SEO is what I call the fourth dimension, and that's economy. Is it economically feasible to spam today? Does it make any sense to build a broad network that's only going to last 6 weeks? Yes, you could run a business that way, and there are people doing it, but does it make sense? Or actually dollars, actually, yeah, put it in the right units. So here, let's talk about SEOnomics. There is a cost of ranking. It's free traffic. It's free after you build a foundation that gets you that traffic.
Prepaid traffic.
It's prepaid. Now, the thing about it is really cool if you do it the right way. The lifetime ROI on that build out can be extremely high. We have got some examples of that where you build content, it keeps paying you years and years and years into the future. In fact, Dan and I are a perfect example. We still get people click through videos and other presentations and lead items we did 5 and 8 and 10 years ago. Those still are out there on the web. Google has a really long memory, and they still get us traffic and customers. Good content that has long-term value. We don't know what the lifetime expectancy of that. The reality is it's probably the length of your business. That content continues to pay you until you shut down the site. So, but there is a cost, right? And that's the authority and the quality. That is to say, the more volume, because authority is really just another word of saying quantity at some level, right? Because PageRank is about the number of pages you have. And so if you have high quality pages that actually stick in the index and you have enough of them, that's really the cost of ranking. And obviously the more of that you have, the higher the cost, because it takes money to create that high quality content. The return on ranking is whatever traffic and conversion you're going to get from that ranking divided by the ranking cost. That's easy, but then bear in mind times longevity. How long is that going to work? So if you have very low quality content but lots of it, yes, you're going to get traffic and conversion for a relatively modest cost, but the longevity is what's in question there. What's going to happen is that edge isn't going to last. So what we really have to do in the modern age is figure out what's the right balance of quantity of content, quality of content, and the longevity of that content in the index. And that's what drives really the economics of SEO. So with that in mind, it's all about the content, right? And so people actually do eat spam. I mean, it is a food product, and people do eat it. I don't prefer it, frankly. I prefer steak, or maybe a roast, a hamburger on occasion. So, but there's a continuum of what constitutes high-quality content. What does that even mean? Now, admittedly, we can see that machine-spun content on one end of the spectrum, we're not going to call that quality. On the other hand, real honest-to-God content written by a thought leader in the marketplace, that's obviously at the other end. Somewhere in between is where all the other content resides. And if you look around the web, you find that humans vary widely in the quality of content. Right. So human spun is probably more like hamburger than between burger and roast. What we really see is that anywhere from burger to steak is probably human content. So the trick is, can we get human content at a cost that makes it longer lived, right, and do it at a cost which we can afford, so we don't have to do spinning. So that brings us to the notion of content marketing. And this is, it's amazing to me how these words, we just choose them to mean what we want them to mean.
There's a radical new idea.
Yeah. So, because back in the day, I did content marketing too. It's just that I happened to scrape it all and spin it, right? So it was content of a sort, right? I would merge, and people are still doing this, by the way. I don't recommend doing it, but back in the day, one of the ways is to take, if you wanted to rank for T1 lines in every major metro in the United States, all you do is get some content from Wikipedia about the metro and get some variation of the T1 product offering and merge those together and create 4,700 web pages. Worked fantastically. Not anymore, by the way, just so that so people don't stop.
We used to just mash the content of the top 10 pages together into a Markov chain machine and spit out garbage to cloak, and then deliver the real landing page to humans. But apparently you can't do that anymore either, and Leslie thinks that's not quality content.
Yeah, I don't really think that's quality content. Yeah, I mean, even the worst I did was not that bad, but I never really.
It's grammatically only sort of nonsense, but it's not for people anyway. It's not like you're going to inflict that on humans.
Oh no, that's true.
The reason why we did it was to serve higher quality content to people.
Exactly, while tricking the machine in the background.
Try and help the search engine do a better job of finding our site.
Absolutely, that's what we're in the business for, right? But if we look at what content marketing means, it means ultimately, it really does mean manipulating search, but using content. Because content, bear in mind, content is the thing which actually drives Google's algorithm, and that is not going to change anytime in the foreseeable future. Because it's pages that create PageRank. So it's content that creates PageRank. It's also pages that carry links, and that's what carries link text. By the way, it also attracts real natural links now that we've seen that convergence of search and social, to where now anybody with a smartphone on Facebook can ultimately create links accidentally. The thing about it is content marketing still intentionally improves ranking. Yes, are we also doing it for other benefits? Absolutely we are. But again, if content marketing only was about engaging visitors, if they happen to find your site because of a Facebook post, we wouldn't do it. The reality is we aren't doing it because we know that it impacts search. And therefore, content marketing is white hat spam. It's just SEO that's done the way Google would actually like you to do it. So the key for today is you need to do high volume, high quality content at low cost. If you can do that, you command search. You will command search for the foreseeable future because that's what Google actually wants, is high volumes of high quality content. Look at every site that ranks. It's called the Wikipedia effect. Why does Wikipedia rank for any search term that they have a page about? Because they've got a bazillion pages. This is not rocket science, people. Okay? The trick, though, is how you actually create that much good content. That's the trick. And guess what? Yeah, we do that. And so we'll take questions and talk about how you can do this for yourself. But for those of you who don't want to do it, guess what? We do it. We've been doing it for years. And so for $997 a month, we can create 15 original human-written posts by U.S. speakers. You know, English is not their second language; it's their first language. So 15 posts a week. We syndicate those to Facebook and Twitter in order to get more eyeballs, so we get those natural links. And we optimize the connection between the blog and your money site in order to make use of the various ranking influences, aka spamming, in order to really get your main site to rank for some of those core terms. And if you're interested in doing that, before we turn this over to questions, right, that's the link, and we'll put that in the chat here in just a minute. But that is the entirety of what it takes to do SEO today, is you just have to get content that passes muster. You have to get it past the quality algorithms. In general, you know, it's there's no bright line between what looks like, you know, what is spun content and what's human authored content. But if you want to do spinning, bear in mind that you are fighting a losing battle. The fact is that Google will always have an advantage over us when it comes to the number of machines and the number of compute cycles they can throw at a problem. What they can't do is they can't really reliably do a Turing test. The reality is, if you have humans writing content, that is a, you know, that's a line way too far out there for them to ever actually detect. That they will always, always, always rank a site highly that has large amounts of human-authored content. If you can figure out a way to do that economically, you always win in search, and you also always simultaneously win in social. So let me, at this point, I bet that there are some questions.
You know, the big irony about this, Leslie, the thing that, oh, hi, Kat, that just, you know, just drives me nuts about it is we used to see people spending thousands of dollars a month renting anchor text links, right? And now you see people spending less money to create far more content that's interesting to actual humans, and then they're spending money on top of that a lot of the time if they want to, you know, juice it up and get it to go fast. You know, an extra $50 a month or $100 a month to Facebook advertising to amplify that signal. I mean, it's just like the paid links in terms of, well, sometimes usually it's cheaper, but but what's the difference,
Exactly.
right? I mean, either way, you're spending money to get traffic. It's just that one of them is bad and don't do it and will penalize you, and one of them is something that, I mean, it's not even their radar to try and stop people from publishing lots of good content.
Well, and guys,
Even though that's clearly spam, as you've demonstrated here, and people should not publish good content because it's spam.
and we find even on a budget, from a budget standpoint, Dan, with what you're saying about, I talked to someone last week who said, I said, how much do you guys spend on Yellow Pages now? Oh, we cut that out a couple of years ago. Well, what'd you do with that budget? Oh, well, we just put it in our pocket now. You're not reinvesting it in the more modern ways to market your business, maybe?
We're not even talking about anything close to Yellow Pages costs to
exactly.
you know, hundreds of dollars a month or thousands people would spend on Yellow Pages ads. You literally, most businesses can't spend that much on Facebook unless they just like do incredibly stupid stuff, like advertise to people outside of your service area just because, well, you know, the budget is $10,000 this month. We've got to figure out how to spend it.
Exactly. So.
Yeah, and that's a good point. And Dan and I've talked about this for many years. I mean, the weird thing is, you know, shift here. But again, I mean, SEO has always been about content and links, and it's still about content and links. It's just how you have to do that content and where you get those links. And so people who are stuck in the old ways, if you will, of buying links, renting links, you know, doing those kind of things, comment spam. People are still doing it. Apparently, they haven't gotten the memo that doesn't really work. But if you actually just decide that what you want to do is be a step ahead of Google and just do what Google wanted you to do in the first place, it actually works better than spamming. That's the reason I'm doing it. I'd still be a spammer. I'd still be spinning content and mashing it up. And, you know, at one point I had a website that had hundreds of thousands of pages, all derived from the National Institutes of Health. You know, hey, I wasn't even stealing it, public domain content. Built a site out of it in order to sell prescription drugs. But you know, that worked incredibly well at the time. It doesn't work now because it's viewed as, it is detectable as duplicate content. But if you did the same thing but non-duplicate content, you're doing good. You just have to figure out a way to do it economically, and that's why it's really about the economics. It's the most important.
Well, the biggest thing, I mean, you know, the once upon a time, right? If you're doing content marketing, your best play in SEO terms was try to get your content spread all over the web. And now your best play is really to concentrate that into one main channel and then syndicate it out so that you can get lots of links to it from all those people. And that's, you know, Corey's guys don't just just bang out any old thing. They're paying attention to the audience that they're trying to serve and attract, and trying to, you know, keep up with the stories that those people are following and feed those people stuff that they're interested in, because that's what gets people to a place where they keep coming back to you organically, rather than you having to pay to get people all the time, which is kind of what this whole thing is about.
Absolutely.
It's about building that audience and building that traffic and building that search engine presence over time so that it can grow instead of going up in spikes when you're good at spamming and then spiking back down when whatever you're doing to spam gets wiped out by the search engine.
Indeed.
Another piece of that is the quality of content. We're writing for the user, the reader, the audience, not for the search engine. The content that was written back in the day, half of it didn't make any sense, and the other half was really, really poor quality. Whereas today, even people worry, oh, is this thin content? Just because it's 100 words. Well, an abstract, if written well by a real human that your audience is interested in, is good quality and is not thin content.
And it's original because you just wrote it.
Right.
There aren't copies of it all over the web the instant it appears.
Indeed. Let's see what questions we have here while we're, let's see. Will this webinar be recorded and available to view later? It's the wonderful thing about Hangouts on air. The answer is yes. Milliseconds after we, hit off air.
It'll be in the Marketer's Braintrust channel on YouTube, I believe.
I believe that's correct. Is it better, the same, worse to put the blog at the same URL as the money site? That is, moneysite.com/blog. Actually, we do it both for clients. Sometimes we do it under /blog, and sometimes we do it as a blog dot. And really, it's a technical decision based upon the content management system that the client's using.
Search engines could not really care less which one you do.
Really, yeah.
There are some edge cases around where you might get one of them penalized for spam and not the other one, but don't do that to either one, and you don't really have to worry about that.
Exactly what Dan was saying. I mean, if there's a site-wide kind of an algorithm running, then the one that's under /blog is going to be tar-babied, whereas the blog dot probably will not. However, in terms of all of the other SEO things, in terms of the way the math of SEO works, they're identical, because the domain name itself is not even part of the algorithm. That's not part of it at all. The only algorithms that use the domain name, it's kind of the top level, would be things that are a domain-wide influence. And so there's things in Penguin, Panda, and others that might have that. But in terms of the core ranking algorithm that's in the walled garden, they're identical. So we do whatever is the most convenient based upon the platform that we have to deal with when we talk to clients.
Yeah, and back in the early days of Panda, they did have a weakness that all you had to do was, somebody did to prove a point of how much they wanted Google to smash them. You could put every page of your site on a separate subdomain, and then every single one of them, had to get its own Panda score. And that worked great for them because their quality was crap, and so their Panda scores were subtracting. But for normal people that have good quality content and are contributing something to the internet, that would actually be worse, because Panda's good news if you have good content, and it's only bad news if you have bad content.
It's interesting. I think, how did they end up not being characterized as some sort of weird link ring if they had?
Well, it was all fought out in public. It was hub pages or spub pages or Squirblr or one of those, Web 2.0 spam factory deals. You remember, Corey? Was it Squirblr? It wasn't Squirblr, was it?
I don't think it's Squirblr.
Squirblr.ly.
It was a really good quality one.
Yeah.
Let's see. Terry asked a couple questions. So discussion on content and links. Then there was a statement: Facebook ads being less expensive than the old pages. That's how these companies do it. Dan, do you want to address the question from Terry about how basically it's about how social affects search, fundamentally, right?
Yeah, well, right. We say a natural link should be a surprise. I mean, the value of getting out in front of people socially. I mean, and we Michelle runs campaigns with clients, and we've had a lot of people that are doing some more advanced stuff after the universal traffic engine training and stuff like that. But you see these weird echoes, right? The way we put it is you run an ad, say, or you put a post on your Facebook page, and you boost that, right? You throw a little money at getting that message out. But then there's an amplification to that, an organic amplification. So in a lot of cases, if we're really hitting the nail, hitting the bullseye in terms of what we should be delivering and who we should be delivering it to, you can see 20% of the traffic that you get is from your paid, 80% is from organic sharing that's still happening inside of the same platform, so Facebook or LinkedIn or Twitter or whatever. But then there's this echo that can be as big as the whole other thing of traffic that you can't account for where it came from. Just all of a sudden we've got all this extra direct traffic, and that's people, sticking links in Skype chats that they're in, or in private groups, or emailing them to people, or reading them to their friends over the phone, all the other ways that stuff gets shared. And fundamentally, if you go back to what we kind of jokingly called the Thies equation, which was based on Drake's equation for how many planets are supposed to have life or whatever, it's how many people see it, how many could give you a link, how many of them want to, an oops, that's one I can control, and how many people see it I can control, and oh, by the way, the number of people that can give you a link goes up every single day. And so, this stuff is continuing to get more effective, and it's that organic amplification that leads to that echo that you don't know where the links are going to come from. You're not going to be able to see them all. The search engines don't want you to see which links they have anymore. They show you this weak little subset in Webmaster Tools so that you can build a disavow file that proves you know what spam is. But the fact is that you can't see what's going on anymore. All these tools, like Majestic and stuff like that, is good for doing research. It's good for a lot of purposes. But don't kid yourself. Nobody sees as much of the web as Google and Bing do, except maybe what's that Chinese search engine?
Yeah, Baidu or whatever it's called. Yeah, let me use the board right quick to show something, because this is a question like, where do natural links come from, right? And so if you have just your normal website, which is pages, okay, this is good. And what's going to happen is you're building page rank and distributing it in this little bubble here. And so as you do that, it is going to cause you to rank higher for your terms, and they're going to rank as just from a site structure perspective based upon kind of the linking structure here. So you can anything that's in the nav bar of the site is going to, every page on the site is going to be pointing at those things, so they're going to rank really well. And so the natural arrangement is you find that the home page typically has the highest page rank, the most authority, but it also has the most kind of open-ended relevance. It's like, what is it about? Okay, well, that's fine, that's great. If that's all that was going on, that would still be good, and that's a reason to build lots of content. And this is exactly what I was doing between 2002 and 2007 when I moved to Georgia. Well, that's out on the top of the screen. I have to see where my actual viewport is. And so that, because there wasn't a significant enough social influence for me to give a crap about it. But today there's this other ecosystem over here, which we laughingly call social. I mean, apparently when people are being social, they're on their computers. I always thought being social was actually on part. But anyway, point is,
computers consulting each other.
Well, yeah, exactly, right. And so what we want to do is we want to take any of the content we do, we push out in here into this social stream, and the reason is, the thing that's missing here is, where am I getting links from outside this site, right? I don't have any, I'm not building links here because that's dangerous, and that was dangerous even back when I was doing this. Instead, what happens is I get eyeballs on this, and they click buttons and do other things over in social, which ends up creating links without them even knowing it. That's the thing about it. It's because of the plumbing that exists in social and its connections to search. All of this, if you go look for site : query, if you do a site : query on Facebook, the answer is 901 billion pages. Now, a lot of that, well, most of that is not followed links, but some of it does end up getting to be followed links through RSS readers and stuff like that. And so by syndicating to social, we actually activate this system over here that causes natural links to occur. And so that's the two pieces of the equation. On content marketing, we're building page rank ourselves, and then by activating social, we're getting those natural links. And this works better today than at any time in the past, frankly.
Yeah, and that's one of the ways that if you think about a search engine can determine whether your links actually make sense or not. There are all these places where they're showing up that they wouldn't be indexed and that no SEO would actually target and stuff like that. And that's some of the more artful spammers that we know. They essentially they create these armies of fake people, and the trick to that is you don't spin an entire article, you spin a blog comment or something like that, a shorter piece of content. You spin a little Facebook comment or something like that, and you create kind of this visible evidence that there's an actual world of actual people that care about you. An easier way, if you don't want to try to operate spam machines at that scale because you're not playing in the kind of markets where you can throw that kind of money at it and computing clusters and stuff, is just to produce content and get it in front of people and cultivate the relationship with that audience.
Indeed. Yeah, they will actually spread it around because they want to. Let's see, are these components of a sales funnel? Twitter, how to create an audience and flow them to a blog website with the original content. Complimentary funding. Yeah, this is really about getting your content in front of the people.
This as a sales funnel isn't the primary purpose. If you think about it as, Corey lives out west, so he knows what a drift net is. You pull a drift net through the water and you get, all kinds of marine life caught up in the drift net and a few of the salmon or tuna or whatever you were trying to get to. This is not quite as destructive as drift nets, but you're going to catch a few that belong, but you can get those people into sales funnels by having ads for the things that might be of interest to them, and you can run ad rotators so that if somebody's reading, like for us, we have a number of different service offerings that we do, and so for people that read our blog posts or our Facebook page, right, we're not always going to be showing them the same ad for AdWords or the same ad for SEO. We're going to rotate those through because we know that by doing this kind of content, we're going to touch the people that we think are close to our target audience, and we're going to touch them repeatedly. We're going to continue to make impressions on them, and so you don't have to find that one perfect ad, but that's really how this becomes part of a sales funnel is people pull themselves out, but that is not the purpose of doing this kind of content marketing.
Although
since the sole purpose.
Yeah, and since it came up though, there is something to when you talk about sales funnels, right? And this is one of the things that is so spectacular about content marketing in general is that there's very little competition out in the wide part of the funnel. I mean, the reality is that when a person has their wallet out key phrase, search term that they're doing down here, they're
searching for steel-toed boots. It's getting expensive to compete in there. But when they say my feet are really cold and this concrete is hard on the search, that's when you can jump in at the top of the funnel with content.
Yeah, and this is where all the big brands are down here. I mean, this is where you have to fight it out based on price and shipping and stuff like that, delivery time. Whereas out here, this is where you actually establish brand. And the story I tell here is that when I'm thinking about buying a computer, I don't actually do any wallet out searches. I walk into the Apple store, and that's because they've already owned me out here in the wide part of the funnel. There are other things like that where just because of contact that I made at some point, and I became attached to a particular brand out here in the wide part of the funnel. When it comes down to the narrow part, I've already made my decision about brand. And so the more brand impression you get out here, yeah, it's not really measurably part of your sales funnel. It's the part of that where it's buried in what we do with single-click attribution. You don't know that what's really happening is it's not that one search term down here that matters. Yes, that matters, but if you command this area out here, it makes the conversion rate on these terms so much higher.
It also makes your rankings higher on those terms for people that are socially connected to you, and that's not just directly socially connected, but their friends are connected to you. But the biggest thing about this as far as it relates to sales funnels isn't that you're trying to, for this kind of content, you're not talking about trying to produce stuff that's actively part of a sales funnel, but how well that performs also affects what it costs you to do paid campaigns and get paid distribution of ads and offers and things like that. It makes it less costly. And fundamentally, when you're talking about, Leslie, like trying to catch people at the top of the funnel, and some of that is making branding impressions. Well, if you're doing that with the entire planet, you're spread very thin. But the cool thing with this is you can actually do this to where you're targeting just sort of the core segment of the audience that's closest to what we call the center of the bullseye, and to those people you're a big brand. To those people they see you all the time, and so when those people see you on search, when they see your ads on search, those people are much more likely to respond and buy from you. When they see your ads on Facebook, they're much more likely to respond and buy from you because they know you. They have good feelings about you, and how you position yourself with your content in terms of what they think of your business affects the decisions that they make later on. So, is there some relevance here? Yeah, but this is just not. This isn't really primarily designed as a selling funnel.
Yeah, no, not at all. I mean, yeah, definitely not. Definitely not. I mean, it's
certainly running paid funnels. I'm happy to hear someone's doing this because that helps. I wouldn't call this a requirement ahead of time. I would say that it's sort of a little bit of happy synergy between SEO and social advertising and display advertising and pay-per-click search.
Yeah. So there are two things. Jim said, Dan, your original instruction for SEO and internal silo linking works very well. Yeah, I'm sure that's true, by the way.
Stuff I was doing for the right thing for the wrong reasons back in the good old days, Leslie.
Yeah, indeed. Craig asked a question. Can you give us a real live URL as an example? And I'm not sure what his question is, but I'm suspicious he's talking about, what does this content marketing look like? I'm going to pretend that's what he means and answer that question. And if that's not it, maybe Craig can ask the question again a different way. But we actually do this ourselves. And so if you want to see content marketing work, we don't do it nothing right now. There's some things we're working on in that regard, but we do.
Writers.
Yeah, we do have our own writers, and it's the same people that in Corey's team are doing writing for our clients, and you can see it on our homepage. And so the way to figure out where it is in the way the homepage is laid out. Is you'll find a section in the middle lower part of the page. So we've got featured content here, and then we've got features here, and then right in this section right here, you'll see it's labeled Quick Reads. And that is actually a stream of content written by our professional writers, the same people who write for our SEO clients, and none of the management team actually even touched that. It's all done by our writers. So that's an example. You can look at that as what we're talking about in terms of abstracts and commentaries. We do it ourselves on our own website.
There's one
that
example.
is some tasty dog food.
There's one example that I want to share from back in the day where people they focus on the wrong thing. I still catch people doing it in terms of press releases. And the whole purpose of a press release, just like the whole purpose of content marketing, is to get in front of people that can reach out to you. With press releases, people build them and they want to know what's the SEO benefit or how do I get more links, etc. We did press releases and marketed them on Facebook and got actual interviews. That's what we want. We don't want some junk news site linking to it, and Google finally crushed a lot of the press release, like PR Web and stuff like that, within the last year. But it was about getting the interview. I had one client get an interview off the blog post we did, and we doubled that up with a press release announcing the blog post, and it was about a recall on some eggs that was local. News called him up, wanted to interview him. We had another client had a news crew fly into LA to interview them because of a press release and using Facebook to advertise that. So it was about getting in front of the right audience, not at all about getting in front of the right Google.
Yeah, makes total sense. Makes total sense. Let's see what other questions we have here. So I get that. Yeah, Craig said yes. That's exactly what I was looking for. Was an example of that.
Unfortunately, that's the only client we can show you right now is us. And the rest of them would rather that we not put their business out and say they're doing SEO because for some reason people are afraid of it now. Even the hint that we might find out that we're trying to do anything is scary, and I guess that makes Google happy. But you really don't have to be scared to put good stuff out into the world. Yeah, doing good stuff. That's good content that people actually like. And we find even in the first couple of weeks, and that's one of the things we ought to do, by the way, is just kind of go through and do some statistics on some of the like and share stuff that we're finding. Even in the first 2 weeks of generating content for a new client, we'll oftentimes see a boost in reach, and we'll see some of the short items that we put out there, with our writers put out there, we'll get lots of likes and shares and retweets. And so that's one of the engagement factors we're looking at is to make sure that we're actually on message for the market we're trying to write for, is that we are getting that kind of social engagement.
So really, really critical to do that. I mean, that's one of the
reasons. We do kind of cheat a little bit by also monitoring other pages and other channels to make sure that what's getting attention and what is getting love from people, that we're making sure that we're jumping on and doing stuff that's going to get a similar response.
Yeah, that's
you don't have to guess, right? I mean, you can do the work. It's a lot of use a lot of software and stuff like that to keep it all organized, but you don't have to guess.
Right. So, I mean, one of the things in a promise to say, all right, so how do you spam today? And it's really simple. You build lots and lots of content. You have to make sure that the content will get past muster. So you just have to make sure that it's good enough that Google will not slap a site quality penalty. There are two ways to do that. I have some friends that are doing, very high technology spinning, and that does actually still work for them. What I've found, though, is that we can actually arrange to make human-authored content as cheap, in the long term, as fun content. It's not as cheap as spinning, but it lasts longer, and that's the key. And remember, the SEOnomics here is that you only get that return times the longevity, right? If it only lasts 2 months, you only get 2 months of benefit, but if it lasts 12, you get 6 times as much. And so that's the deal. So depending on where you want to draw the line in content quality, you're either going to call it content marketing or call it spamming. They mean the same damn thing. The reality is, how you get traction for the marketplace and natural links and stuff like that. The higher the quality content, you're getting better and more natural links. Even low quality content, however, will get some natural links. Because not everybody hates spam, as it turns out. It's bizarre. But so there's not a bright line there between what is content marketing. I encourage you to go as far to the end of content marketing as possible, but the reality is the way spamming works today is the same way it always worked. And you can still get away with exactly the same ways. Blog networks aren't it. Content marketing, and all its variations, is the way to actually spam, and it's also the way to do SEO, those being essentially the same idea. So.
And it's also how we did it before there were search engines to get traffic.
Yeah. Smartphone is okay with my client as long as it comes with some free advice. Okay, well, all right. So let's try that. So hang on a second. So Craig gave us an example here. Let's go take a look here. So smartsound.com/blog. So let's see what that looks like. Royalty-free music blog. I think I know who this. I may actually know which Craig this is. Now I think about it, because I think we've seen that site before. Let's see here. So yeah, so let's see what's on this blog. See if this actually really does what we're talking about. Romantic royalty-free guitar music. Looks like they're publishing. I would publish more than this unless I'm looking at only one stream of content. And there may be more than one. So Corey and Dan and Michelle, it's smartsound.com/blog. Wasn't Craig G working with those guys once upon a time? Isn't that right? Maybe Craig will tell us if his last name starts with a G. But yeah, I mean, this is good. This is good content. It looks to me like. I would be a little bit concerned about embedded links in your posts. So embedded anchor text links in your posts. So like if I'm looking at the title romantic royalty-free guitar music. So we have Morning After, Craig Stewart, Garfinkel, New Age Ensemble. Those are all embedded anchor text links within the blog post. You've got to be really careful about that. So let's talk about link text within a domain. There in the back, there was a while ago. Okay, that is Craig G. All right. So hi, Craig. So here's the thing about anchor text within your site. So actually, it's anchor text in general. So anchor text from outside your domain. So here's your domain, and there's some links to it. it's really easy to determine statistically what this needs to look like. So Google can profile this through what's called cut line analysis and know that a certain percentage of these should be anchor text, there should not be certain concentrations of different anchors, and that there should be a lot of them that are either going to be click here or just the URL or a picture, right? And so this is very easy for them to detect blog networks as a result. Within a website, the rules are completely different. And they're different because of the way we just build websites for human usability. And so in general, what we're going to have is going to have like a left-hand nav bar, and we're going to have a content area here. We're going to have a header probably that leads to your home page, and then we're going to have small number of links here in the bottom. In general, so let's talk about the exceptions. The exceptions are when we have a bunch of links in the bottom, and you've been around long enough to know about the big block of footer links and how bad that turned out to be later on. So we don't want to see a big block of footer links down here. What about the nav bar? How is the nav bar different than footer links? And it's because of all those patents that Google put together to recognize the template of the page. And so what they're realizing is this stuff here is constant across the site, or nearly constant across the site. There'll be small variations of it. And so they literally treat that differently in terms of how link text is processed. So that
and nowadays they render the page with, when they crawl it, which, they've been doing that for a while now, but they didn't used to do that. They didn't used to put it through the rendering engine to figure out what's where.
Exactly, yeah. So that's the upgrade. See, because for a while they were just looking at the markup, and then they started actually processing the JavaScript and CSS. So you're getting a much better picture of what the page actually looks like. And so putting an anchor text link in your nav bar is almost a get out of jail free card. You can do almost anything you want to in your nav bar. When you put the same links though within the body of your copy, that's where you run into site quality problems where it's viewed as stuffing of keywords. And so in the one example I looked at, I would be very, very hesitant, to recommend that. I would not wanting to do, like linking to morning after, which goes to, a page on your site where that's presumably a meaningful keyword link. I don't know, but
it kind of looks, Craig, like what you're hoping to do here with these blog posts is get them to rank more than anything else. And I'm not trying to say that makes it bad content or anything like that. Just understand that you're walking every step is another step closer to the line that you don't want to cross.
Indeed, yeah. And you could actually do a lot more content. I mean, like I said, we do 3 posts a day, 5 days a week, and you don't have to be longer posts. They can be much shorter.
Yeah, if you're doing a handful of these longer posts a week, doing even 2 or 3 abstracts and commentaries a day, one can help you keep in touch with an audience, which you should be trying to target this at an audience and people, but also it changes the dynamic in terms of when a Panda is looking at your site. It's not all stuff that's doorway pages, right? There are things that were clearly written to answer a particular search query, maybe, but that's not the only thing that you're doing.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, there's a lot of good things there. I mean, I think there's just some areas where you might want to tune it just a little bit. That's oftentimes what we find with content marketing in general, and what Dan and I teach, and the practice for some years, is that it's in the finesse. It's in that last 5%. Where you find it actually works well. So you gotta just look at it from that perspective. That looks like all of the our H tags still working in SEO. Irene, they're working as well as they always did, which is not much. And so again, Google put very little.
They used to need that as a hint to the structure, and now they don't need that as a hint to the structure.
Right, yeah, that's right. And see, Google was never terribly concerned about the page at all. It was up and through about 2005 where I didn't need a title tag even to rank a page. I mean, I could rank a completely blank file. And then 2005 and beyond, I needed at least to have a title tag in order to have any chance of really, winning the bet. Now the ranking algorithm doesn't really require content either. However, the site quality stuff, is going to cause me lots of problems if I try to rank pages.
Your blank pages don't make it through the walls of the garden anymore. I wanted to mention one more thing because we people still ask, should we be getting ready to fix about maybe thinking about possibly getting ready to be good on mobile? Now would be good. Last year it would be good, but one of the reasons why Google made the big push with infrastructure and data center change and all this stuff, and it's a very costly thing for them to do all this rendering, is not just to understand what's where, but also understand what does this thing look like to people on a mobile device, so that we can stop showing it to people on a mobile device if it freaking sucks. Did I say freaking sucks?
I think you did,
I said earlier,
it's a technical term.
Good on that.
Mm-hmm. No, that's absolutely right. So that's because mobile is actually what is it? Desktop search actually peaked 2 years ago. Is that right? I can't remember what year it was, but it peaked and turned down.
I think so, because we didn't actually get. They used to post certain numbers every year over at Google, and they last year they didn't post them. So we think we've hit peak desktop search. We haven't hit peak mobile search yet, but we may have actually hit the peak total number of searches that people are finding stuff through other channels more often now than searching. But definitely desktop search has peaked, and mobile is the area of search that's on the rise. And that's not just for organic. Also think about that's for paid. And if you don't have the ability to deliver a really good mobile experience from your paid ads, you're out of that, and somebody else is grabbing all that traffic and all that money. Just saying.
Yeah, Terry,
that could be your lunch.
Let's see. Humans can write original content that is pretty much crap. However, that's true. What is the value parameter for determining quality? Well, there isn't one. That's the thing. It's like, but a one-man spam is another man's steak. So the reality is that you're asking something that's not computable. What is?
Yeah, they're doing some rudimentary stuff with reading level, like this is 3rd grade, this is 5th grade reading level and stuff like that. But that's about all they can do.
Yeah, so there is one, so since Dan got to that, so there's a couple things that Google is doing that we believe gives them some quality indicators, some text quality indicators as a side effect. So there's a thing called named entity detection, and that's where you can, from part of speech analysis, it's natural language processing technology, from part of speech analysis, you can determine what is a proper noun. So you can figure out that NSA is an organization, right, or Leslie Rhodey is an individual or a person, maybe a robot, I'm not sure. But anyway, you can figure that out from part of speech analysis. And so now one of the things that falls out from that is that they've actually therefore run a spell check and a grammar check as a side effect of that. And so if that's the case, your spinner, if it's going to be any good, it better write grammatically correctly spelled content. So as a beginning point in analysis, I would say that is where you want to start, is with grammatically correct content that's spelled correctly. Now, reality is, you look around the web, you know that that's not the standard that humans hold themselves to, and so that's not a 100% measure, that maybe it's a 70% measure, or maybe it's a site-wide average. Maybe they have statistics they can say, well, on average, a site is going to be this good, and any particular page may not be, right? So, again, we don't know, and is there a bright line on what constitutes quality content and non-quality content? Of course not. It's not possible to compute.
But if you want to have some tinfoil hat fun, and I'm not going to give you the click-by-click on how to turn on reading level in your Google search results, but just know that you can turn on reading level in your Google search results. Go type in a search term that you care about personally, one that if you were number one, you might feel good about it. And look at the first page. You're going to see a remarkable similarity typically in the reading level between the top 10 results. Then go look at page 2. And page 2 will not look like page 1. There's your tinfoil hat reading level conspiracy theory report for the week of November 18th, 2014. I'm Dan Thies, signing off. Courage.
Okay, wow, that was great. Okay. Do you use schema.org markup? Only when we find it in search results. I mean, our current best advice on that is to not go out there and try to implement all of schema, because a lot of that is just blue sky, no telling you it'll ever get done.
but there's a lot more of it supported now than there has been, and it's continuing to go. So things like events. If you're a retailer, you should be all up in that schema for sure. But anything with events, you can put contact information in there that gets pulled out in some contexts. It matters, especially to retailers. You just get it done.
Absolutely, yeah. So where you find it being used, within your market, within terms you care about, then absolutely you should. Continuing the content quality thing, Marge asks, it's the folks who write conversationally. Will they ding folks who write conversationally? As we all know, conversational English is not always grammatically correct. Yeah, and that's the reason it can't be at 100%. That's the thing. It never could be. But the fact that they have the information available means that they can run it on the entire index, which is more information than God has about us, and figure out what the right numbers are. And
usually conversational English is structurally correct grammatically. It may not. You might say a couple of times, but as long as you get your Oxford comma in the right place, you're pretty good, right?
That might be a higher standard than most of us can figure out. But yeah, so the title tags still work. Yes, absolutely, title tags. It's not that title tags still work. Title tags were added as an important factor in probably, 2004 maybe, I'm not sure. They were always part of the algorithm, don't get me wrong, it's just I never actually needed them until 2005. I could get away with just anchor text.
That's because you were bombing the hell out of the machine with anchor text, Rhodey.
Yeah, I know. That's yeah. So, I didn't tell people about my phone call. Oh, yeah, that's right. So I didn't actually get to talk to the guy. Well, I did, but it was like weeks later. So what happened was OptiLink was released onto Michael Campbell's email list at 2 p.m. Pacific time on May 22nd, 2002. There's a lot of twos in there. And I had to go look at I tried to restore it. I couldn't find exactly the right archive. I have to go get the exact date. But it was sometime within the next 10 days that when I was out to lunch, literally, when I came home, there was a voicemail from some guy in the spam team at Google. And he told me in no uncertain terms I didn't want my tool violated the webmaster guidelines because it scraped Google search results. And so there ensued an email exchange where basically at one point I got him to concede that, well, okay, I see you're right. Yes, because a person, it is kind of just an unusual browser interface. This is the way the position I was taking. And so he said, okay, yeah, you're right, you're fine. And I said, well, that's interesting because through back channels I found out somebody else didn't think it was fine, and without naming names. And I said, well, so go talk to so-and-so because he's told one of my affiliates that it's not okay. And so sure enough, he came back later and said he'd have to reverse himself on that, and in fact, they didn't want my tool anywhere near Google. So anyway, that was a real honest-to-God interchange from the Google quality team back in 2002. Just thought people would enjoy that little side show. That's all I got.
Well, you got all your affiliates banned, Leslie. That's basically the real deal. You got all your affiliates kicked out of Google for promoting you.
Yeah, for about 6 months, and then because of
just like the guy selling that web position gold crap.
Yeah. For a while there, he was gone too. Yeah. So, but anyway, they all got back in. Through a little conversation was being had in the open in Brett Tapke's forum. That eventually somebody at Google must have gotten wind of it and said, "Oh, there's a problem here." Yeah.
At Google.
Somebody who's remained nameless for this phone call. Well, let's see. We're kind of running out of questions. I think we've got them all answered at this point, and so yeah. So we got any closing? If anybody's interested in having us do this for you, I mean, I'll reiterate the offer here because that's what we do, right? Because we do market this stuff, but.
Now, if somebody just wants to email and ask a question about it, Leslie, speaking of conversational English.
Yeah, that's true.
What address to which would they send that on email to axe with?
Yeah, because that would be bad if they want to ask a question. There we go. Just got to
Word to your mother.
You're such a cut up.
Is that hyphenated? Yeah, so you can mail me at Leslie plus SEO. That's so it goes into the right folder. And are external links, one question in under the wire, are external links still considered to be votes? What about citations exactly? But all links are votes, and it's not just external ones. You get to vote for your own pages. And so pages rank, not sites. The only place where we have a site effect is in some of the quality factors, some of the for the filters, Panda and Penguin, that kind of thing. And so when pages link to each other, those links are those quote-unquote votes. And so it's not really a vote, it's the way PageRank works, just to be clear. But yeah, your internal linking works as well as external linking. Now, is there a variation, is there a difference in the way Google weights those links? Yes, could be. They could certainly make that work. PageRank can be made to converge with you have different weighted, different weights on the different edges of the graph. That is a possibility. We can't really, no one can run that experiment. If someone says they can prove it, they're full of it. So, but they're all important. So linking your own site together in a sensible way is the first thing. Good ranking starts at home. The second thing is to get those natural links, get people to get eyes on your content so that they will share it and cause those natural links to occur. What about citations? Oh, well, you just asked me. Okay. So gang, it looks like we lost Corey. He probably had a client to talk to.
He's probably working.
Yeah, he might be working. So someone
Probably slacking off doing work for a client or something instead of hard at the hangout here with us.
Yeah,
exactly. Well, Dan, did you have anything to add spamming wise? And Michelle, I'm sure you're an ardent spammer from way back in the day.
I know all the things not to do. I learned firsthand because just telling me not to do it wasn't enough for me.
Well, part of the problem was one of us was telling you not to do it, and then Leslie was probably saying, go ahead, just spam a little bit. First one's free.
I will say that I will, just from a war story standpoint, is I did do this whole text link rental thing back in 2004, and it was beautiful. It only took about 4 days for my page to go to my site to go up from like number 6 on Google to number 1, and that lasted until Black Friday, and then I was gone from the SERPs until February.
Ouch.
That seems like inconvenient timing, perhaps even deliberately inconvenient.
Does it not? So.
Yeah, that's terrible. Bob also asked about content link. There's no known minimum length for content. If the page gets indexed, that's good enough. But in general, you don't want to have an entire site built out of little tiny messages. That might be a problem.
One-word blog posts would tend not to do as well.
I've got to believe that that's true. But on the other hand,
the dictionary without the definitions.com.
Yeah, what's the site that does, and it's completely automated curation. It's it's in technology industry kind of news. What's the name of the thing?
TechMeme.
Thank you, TechMeme. TechMeme is all short content. Twitter, it's all short content, right? I mean, if you go do a site on twitter.com, I think you'll find that there's a lot of billions of pages. So, so one word, probably too short, but why would you do it? I mean, that's the other thing. It's like, if I can assure you that 50 words is fine. And
if there's long enough to have some human purpose, it's long enough.
Exactly right. The human purpose is what you focus on. So, we know that Twitter works at 150 words or 150 characters, right? So, okay, that's a good minimum right there. But you'd have to have a platform where it made sense. Obviously, if you had a blog post that was only 150 words, people had to click around a blog for 150-word posts. That doesn't make any sense. The presentation obviously sucks.
I have to answer Becky's question thing here. So the latest search metrics report, I don't know who that's from, says 900 to 1,000 words. Everybody I've ever talked to that's done that kind of stuff, when I say, so did you filter Wikipedia out of the results so that the 10,000-word mega articles that tend to rank because those are the ones that everybody's linking to and contributing to, and no, we didn't filter that out. It's just based on what's on the search result. It just, I'm sure there's some way to get a cleaner picture of it, but I don't believe any of them are trying to.
And besides, we can demonstrate for real case studies that you don't have to write long content. In fact, you're probably better off writing long content. You're better off writing short content.
I know how many words it needs. I know the answer.
As many as the human needs to engage with it.
Absolutely. Just exactly as many as you need to tell the story well, but not so long that people get bored and go away.
Yeah, because I mean, what you want them to do is to consume the content, and then you want them to pass it on to other people. And so, you know, 100 word posts that are meaningful are better than 1,000-word posts that are just somebody's idea of something that might be interesting.
Yeah, look at the average length of the piece of content that got shared on Facebook last week. It's a lot shorter than 900 to 1,000 words.
Well, and it's in the same vein, but someone talked about having friends on Facebook, and they said they'd rather have 4 quarters than 100 pennies, and I think it kind of goes to that same thing.
Yeah, and we live in a kind of a soundbite world, you know, where we don't want to, you know, if there's a 1,000-word article, I'm gonna have to schedule that, right?
Exactly.
You got to give me 50 words that tells me why I should bother to read it.
Right.
So, and that's why abstracts and commentary work so well to get engagement, is that you are able to tease the person, and the person who really does want the information is going to click through, and everybody else is not going to be bothered. They haven't that much invested in it. 1,000 words, you get halfway through and say, what the hell am I doing here? They
didn't even take out the Wikipedia pages. Come on. Oh, man. Just spent 10 minutes finding that out.
Oh. Yeah, there's a book I read long ago named Dahlgren, a pointless book. But it was just interesting enough that it kept me engaged all the way to the end, and I got finished with it and I said, that was a complete waste of several days. Right, and that's the worst possible thing. You get into a 1,000-word article, you think it's going to be interesting, and you find out that was pointless. You know, I wish somebody had told me in the first 100 words. So, yeah.
That's kind of how I felt about Atlas Shrugged, but anyway.
Yeah, that's true. Let's see. Don't we say, yeah, 300 words or less absolutely ranks. 100 words, 50 to 100 words. You know, the case studies that we have where people have done, and it varies widely as to which student has done how much of our teaching wrong and how much of it right, okay? But that varies widely. But we absolutely see people who have double and triple traffic within a year's time doing link liberation technique. And in many cases, it's short material. I mean, what we teach is an abstract is 50 to 100 words. What we do for clients, that's exactly it. 50 to 100 words for abstracts and 100 to 200 words for commentary. It's only the hero posts that are like 500 or 700 words, and those are not even, generally speaking, we don't do those. In some cases we do, but that kind of featured content is something that's much longer form and is written by the client themselves, and it's only 1 or 2 or 3 times a week. It's that foundation that we build with Content Merriment that's important to get all the rest of that stuff noticed. That's kind of the key there. But, do those Twitter and Facebook links last? Well, no, because then it doesn't matter anyway.
That's not the point.
It's not the point. So the point of social is to get eyes on your content and then activate what's going on within social, because what happens in social, most of what happens in social stays in social because it's no followed. But so many things scrape social and turn it into something which sticks. And that's the invisible plumbing, right? When you turn on a light switch, do you have any idea what happens in order to create the light? Do you have any idea what happens when you pick up the receiver on a telephone? How many millions of lines of computer instruction code got executed to create a dial tone? It's the invisible stuff that causes the search and social collision that we saw over the last 5 years. And it's because then you have to catch it in real time. And so if you have access, and I don't know how much of this stuff we make public, if you have access to our 2012 live conference in San Diego, I did it on stage. I found a tweet that was being made by one of the participants. It got picked up, and it got repeated through an RSS reader and onto a sidebar of a blog. But I had to go specifically look for something in real time, because 15 minutes after that, it was gone. Now what I showed was that during the period of time it was live, that page got scraped by Google and got indexed. Right? So that's that kind of thing, and that's just one example of it, where you find these interconnections between search and social that turn attention into linking. So that was kind of maybe a long technical answer to a simple question. But Sorry about that. It's kind of technical. All right, so Michelle, you have anything else? And Dan, why did you turn into a still picture?
Because I'm running upstairs to plug my computer back in before it goes dark.
Oh, okay. It's one of those power problems, eh? Okay. Well,
Yeah. It's it's the 11-inch Air, and normally it'll run for all day. But these Hangouts with all the flash or whatever it is just drain battery. But
yep.
the other thing I want to mention is it's not about whether the link on Facebook or Twitter is indexed or counts or whatever. That's not the point. The thing is, real natural human links only come from humans, and they only come from humans who have seen your content. And so you're not worried about the links on Facebook and Twitter, and you can't keep track of all the other links as they're being created because you didn't ask for it. You didn't, you don't control the anchor text. It's not like the way it used to be, but it's a lot easier because all you have to do is feed the machine what it wants.
Indeed. Well, let's see. So what should we talk about next week? We had a theme for this week, which was, spamming, how I used to spam when you can too.
So next week is the Tuesday before Turkey Day.
Oh, that's true. It is. Yes.
So should we do a show about eating birds, or
doesn't sound
marketing? How about we do a show about all the lies that Google tells you?
Okay, wow, that's gonna be a long show. This is over an hour and a half.
Just about AdWords, so that because all the lies, like we're not trying to build Skynet. Don't worry about those robots walking around. They're here for your protection. All that stuff. We won't go into that part. But the lies that Google tells about AdWords and so many of the things that they default you to and try to warn you not to do are, well, a lot of the things they warn you not to do is exactly what you should have done before you started. And a lot of the things that they tell you that they want you to base your strategy on are just flat out lies. I mean, we sent out a mail earlier today about one of them, which is the whole lie that that conversion rate doesn't vary by ad position. In fact, in every market we've ever looked at, you're getting better conversion and better quality of leads and larger orders for retailers toward the top of the page than you're getting at the bottom. And so that's just one of those many lies they tell us that, well, I would just like to inoculate some people against some of Google's lies because we certainly can't stop them from falling prey to all of them. I'm Dan Thies, signing off. Courage.
Yeah, okay. All right, so that's so PPC lies that you didn't know or something like that. We'll come up with a catchy title. I'm sure Dan will come up with something. And so that's what we'll talk about next next week. Get to mix it up. SEO this week and PPC lies next week.
And we'll have a vote for best haircut in the Braintrust, so be there for that.
That'll be good. Yeah, that'll be good. Okay.
We need bow ties next week too, because I could do that.
I'll have to find a tie. I'm not sure if I'm going to get a chance to get out because we've got all these shopping campaigns to build, which means you really probably won't get out of the house either. So
yeah,
I don't have to. I can just sew one down.
You've got beer at home. Okay.
Oh, yeah, so I think it's degenerated. All right, fine. I'm gonna hit this stop podcast button here. So thanks everybody for playing along.
Everybody, thanks for
30 minutes. 30 minutes longer than usual. We try to keep them to an hour, but
thanks everybody.
Thanks everybody. We will see you next week.